Welcome back to the Nucleus Podcast. Today, we're looking at advanced nuclear power and data centers, why artificial intelligence is accelerating nuclear investment, what is actually being built, and where the commercial story may be running ahead of reality.
That distinction matters. In this update, we see enormous demand for dependable, continuous electricity, particularly from artificial intelligence data centers, cloud infrastructure, and industrial manufacturing. Nuclear power fits that requirement well on paper. But there is a considerable distance between announcing a reactor, demonstrating criticality, financing a project, and supplying electricity commercially.
The headline number is striking. Grid market and deployable energy are targeting more than 3 gigawatts of electrical capacity by 2035, with a project pipeline valued at $22.5 billion. That sounds less like an experiment and more like an emerging infrastructure market.
It does, although a pipeline is not the same as committed revenue or completed generating capacity. The partnership gives priority access to future capacity for grid market's commercial, industrial, data center, and hyperscaler customers. Deployable Energy's Unity nuclear battery has achieved criticality, which is a material technical milestone. The legal and commercial work now involves allocating construction, regulatory, fuel supply, performance, and customer demand risks over a long delivery period.
There is a wider pattern here. Terrestrial Energy is collaborating with Riot Platforms on data centers co-located with advanced nuclear power. Valar Atomics is working with NVIDIA to explore nuclear-powered artificial intelligence data centers with minimal water use. TerraPower is working with Meta on locations where reactors could be coupled with data centers and utilities. Is co-location becoming the central idea?
It is certainly one of the central ideas in this update. Co-location offers the prospect of matching a very large, concentrated electricity user with dedicated generation. That can strengthen the commercial case for a reactor because the developer may have a substantial customer from the outset. But the parties still need to settle who bears delay risk, how power is priced, what happens if the data center's demand changes, and whether the project can sell electricity elsewhere.
And data center demand is not the only driver. Missouri cites manufacturing and electric vehicles as well as artificial intelligence. Utah expects new nuclear projects within 4 to 5 years. New Jersey lawmakers have approved measures both to curb data center demand and to boost nuclear and solar power. So the politics are slightly contradictory. Attract the infrastructure, then confront the power bill.
Exactly. Data centers can support investment and economic development, but they can also intensify competition for limited grid capacity. That tension explains why policymakers are looking simultaneously at new generation, existing nuclear stations, and controls on large electricity users. It also helps explain renewed interest in restarting shuttered plants, including 3 Mile Island.
We should pause on technical progress. The news this week confirms that 4 United States advanced reactor designs have now successfully demonstrated criticality under a federally supported campaign. Arlo Atomics is the 4th. How much confidence should listeners take from that?
It is meaningful that Arlo Atomics says it demonstrated criticality for a commercial-scale advanced nuclear reactor. It is not, however, the same as showing that a commercial power plant can be built and financed. ENTRA1's partnership with NuScale Power is revealing because the update describes precisely that next challenge, turning proven technology into commercial power plants that can be built and financed.
Manufacturing seems to be another major theme. Ampera says it has completed a full-scale, 3-dimensionally printed reactor module. Its founder and chief executive officer, Brian Matthews, says the nuclear core and pressure vessel create the foundation for factory-built, mass-produced nuclear energy.
Factory production is central to Ampera's stated model. It says the next-generation nuclear core and pressure vessel lay the foundation for factory-built, mass-produced nuclear energy. Ampera is targeting data centers, defense, industrial, and maritime applications, and it is also collaborating with Adelphi Technology on high-yield neutron generation. But mass-produced describes the intended model rather than demonstrated production at scale.
Deep fission is taking a very different physical approach. Small, modular, pressurized water reactors installed 1 mile underground. Its prototype reactor canister has arrived at a site in Kansas. That captures the sheer variety in this market. Molten salt reactors, microreactors, nuclear batteries, underground reactors, and more conventional small modular designs.
The variety creates opportunity, but the press this week repeatedly points to commercial and regulatory hurdles. It refers to regulatory approvals, fuel supply, reactor sites, domestic supply chains, and the challenge of turning proven technology into commercial plants that can be built and financed.
Which brings us to fuel. The United States awarded Centrus Energy a contract reported at one point as $1.07 billion to produce high-assay low-enriched uranium. A later item describes a formalized $900 million task order for commercial-scale production in Piketon, Ohio. The articles this week do not reconcile those figures.
And one should not pretend that it does. What is clear is the strategic objective, establishing domestic production of fuel required by advanced reactors. The wider update also reports a $36 billion United States and Japan investment initiative covering nuclear energy, critical minerals, and fuel supply chains. Meanwhile, Europe remains dependent on Russia across mining, conversion into uranium hexafluoride, enrichment of the uranium-235 isotope, and fuel fabrication.
So energy independence is not achieved merely by building a reactor domestically. If conversion, enrichment, or fabrication remains externally dependent, the strategic exposure simply moves along the chain.
Precisely. That is why the supply chain agreements may be as consequential as the reactor announcements. Eagle Nuclear Energy Corporation, for example, has appointed a project management consultant and expanded technical agreements for its planned uranium project. Standard Nuclear is seeking to raise $383 million in a United States initial public offering to manufacture advanced reactor fuel. These are attempts to build the industrial base around the reactors.
The investment material also carries obvious warnings. Nanonuclear energy is described as a high-risk investment. It is completing a prototype microreactor, but it does not operate nuclear plants and does not plan to begin generating electricity anytime soon. That is a useful corrective to the excitement.
Yes. A compelling market narrative does not eliminate execution risk. The piece also contains a notable inconsistency. A headline says Cathie Wood's ARK bought $15 million of Oklo stock, while the body of the article says ARK Investment Management bought roughly $15.2 million of X-Energy shares. That kind of mismatch should stop any investor from relying on a headline without checking the underlying disclosure.
There is almost a legal lesson running through the whole update. Distinguish intention, agreement, and outcome. A memorandum of understanding is not a completed deployment. A collaboration is not a power station. A proposed business combination, such as Nucleo Limited's transaction with Newhold Investment Corporation III, is not automatically completed financing.
That is right. The item on structuring space nuclear deals makes the same point from another direction. Similar structuring issues are appearing in terrestrial advanced nuclear projects, including small reactor concepts tied to data center demand. In both settings, investors and counterparties want access.
The United Kingdom story provides a contrast between preserving what already exists and betting on what comes next. Sizewell B has received a 20-year extension to 2055 and supplies around 3% of United Kingdom electricity. At the same time, SGE proposes 14 small modular reactors across 3 sites, creating a 4.2 gigawatt fleet that it says could supply roughly 11% of the country's electricity.
Sizewell B is an operating asset with a 31-year history. Its provisional agreement with EDF and Centrica includes a contract for difference intended to stabilize electricity prices. The SGE proposal is privately financed and potentially substantial, but it remains a proposal. The government is also backing Sizewell C and the first small modular reactors in Anglesey. The strategy therefore combines life extension, large-scale new construction, and smaller reactor technologies.
And the international picture is equally active. Rwanda has signed a small modular reactor roadmap with Rosatom. Vietnam is discussing a 3.2 gigawatt project with Korea Electric Power Corporation. Russia has proposed 1 or 2 new units in Armenia, and Egypt has praised Russian cooperation on the El Dabar plant. Yet geopolitical risk is everywhere.
It is. Australia has agreed to sell uranium to India for peaceful purposes after years of delay, but the deal has prompted domestic criticism because India has not signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. Separately, escalating United States and Iranian strikes reportedly reached the perimeter of the Bushehr nuclear power plant. Nuclear energy cannot be separated from security, diplomacy, and non-proliferation concerns.
Nor, perhaps surprisingly, from weather. France shut Reactor 2 at Gulfec when temperatures reached 28 degrees Celsius, while Great Britain's grid operator sought extra supplies during the heat wave. Nuclear is presented as resilient baseload generation, but the week also showed that physical operating conditions still matter.
They do. The essential takeaways are these. Artificial intelligence and data centers are creating a powerful commercial case for continuous generation. Advanced reactor developers are achieving genuine technical milestones. Governments are supporting fuel supply chains and existing nuclear assets. But licensing, financing, manufacturing, fuel availability, climate resilience, and geopolitics remain decisive constraints.
So this is neither empty hype nor a finished nuclear renaissance. It is a market moving from prototypes and partnerships towards attempted commercial deployment, with data centers increasingly acting as the prospective anchor customers. Thank you for listening to the Nucleus Podcast.
Over the last week, industry sentiment has been data center driven and cautiously positive overall, tempered by execution and geopolitical risk. See you in the next one.